The following program, The Lightning Strike, is sponsored by Mohammed Fahim, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of NewsWeb Radio Company or its management.
Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Fahim, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, Chicago. Good Sunday morning. Beautiful day outside, and a lot of things happening in our world that we need to be talking to you about. You can tune in to the radio on WCPT AM 820 on the Chicago airwaves, or you can listen to us live on the heartlandsignal.com. Joining me today on the phone today is Mother's Day. So first off, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and including our mother hen over here, Sheila White. Good morning, Sheila.
Good morning, Mohammed, and to all the mothers out there, good morning. To my co-host, Maria, also Maria, good morning.
Yeah. Maria, also good morning, Maria, and happy Mother's Day to the two ladies that keep our show floating. And Ken DeLuke is joining us on the line. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, all. How's it going today?
I am doing very well. Read Bible will also be joining us shortly, and also our regular guys over here, the team that we have. Thank you all very much for being part of the show. Folks, again, so much happening today. So we'll be looking at Kristi Noem's press conference that she did that stunt in Springfield today, and how one of the families, especially of Emma Schaefer's family, responded to that stunt by Kristi Noem. And Trump's remarks about the India-Pakistan war that is going on now. I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but our president came out in a press conference and said that India and Pakistan have been fighting for decades, if not for centuries. Mr. President, the countries were founded in 1947. Where the heck are you getting the fighting for centuries crap from? Okay, so that's our president, man. He just comes out and says stuff that does not make sense. The Senate race is heating up, and we will be talking about the people that have already thrown their hat into the ring: Raja Krishnamurthy, Robin Kelly, and Juliana Stratton, our Lieutenant Governor. We're also going to be talking about the arrest of, Ras Baraka, the mayor of New Jersey, and he was accompanied by three Congress people: Bonnie Watson Coleman, Robert Menendez Jr., and LaMonica McIver, and they were protesting about ICE having that facility, as they like to call it, in New Jersey that the mayor says was not authorized by him as the mayor. Our person of the week, Sheila, good morning. You want to introduce our person of the week, which I believe is Renata Watson?
Her name is Dr. Renita Watson. She's an awesome individual. She works with moms and mothers around the country, doing some phenomenal things with not just mothers, but also widow moms. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Watson to the show. Dr. Renita, welcome to the Lightning Strike this morning.
I'm still on my door.
Thank you. How are you?
Okay.
And if you have
I am so glad to be here.
On Dr. Renita, if you could please dial down your radio and just be on the phone with us.
I am.
Dr.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you're doing around the country with women on this Mother's Day, specifically for the mothers out there.
Sure, absolutely. Around the country with mothers. So one of the things that I do is I am the campus chancellor of Kingdom Heritage Christian University, and we have scholarships that we give mothers. And one of the things that, if I had to say something to the mothers, one of the things that I would say is to have a plan, and that plan starts with you. And so I see a lot of mothers around the country that are having issues and struggling with their motherhood. And so one of the things that I want to talk about today is how you execute that plan so that you can be a better mother.
Awesome. And can you tell us about the things that you used to do for moms? This year, I know it's a little different, but you usually do a conference with moms. So can you tell us a little bit about the conference?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, so every year we do a retreat. We didn't do it this year, a lot going on, but I do a Mother's Day retreat. And the reason why I do that retreat is because there are people out there who lost their mothers, and one of the things that happens all the time is that people that lost their mothers, they come and it's a time of refuge for them. But then the other thing that I do is mothers show up and we give mothers a break. Every year at this retreat, we pick a mother who may be struggling in various areas, and we just spoil and we pamper that mother. We've done things like giving them a car, we've given them vacations, giving them massages, but we just take that time to be a blessing to mothers, and we always do it on a Friday night into the Saturday, so then after that they can go have some time, have some girl time.
Dr. Watson, this is Mohammed. I'm sorry to be breaking in between, but do you have a radio or something going on in the background? I hear a lot of background noise. Or is anyone else who's on the line? Do they have your radio on? If not, please go ahead and mute your radio.
Okay. Yes, sir. Is that any better? Can you hear me? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds much better.
Okay. Thank you.
Oops,
okay,
I
so
okay. You may be outside in the
better?
business space. Yep.
Is this better?
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we do for mothers.
So can you give us a special message to moms? Because I know that you're in ministry, and there's a lot of people that some people are suffering without their children. Their mother has gone on. The person in their life that was a representative as a mother, they may be separated or whatever. But can you give an encouragement to moms out there that are just doing it the best that they can, those that may be missing their moms? Can you give us a message from the heart to the mothers on this Mother's Day?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things I want to make this big announcement. This is going to relieve so much pressure off of you. I recently went to a show and they were determining DNA. Okay, and they did a DNA test, and it came back. And guess what? You are not the father. Listen, I know this is controversial, but so many of us, especially single mothers, have tried to be the father. And one of the things that I did that helped me so much, I realized this early on, that I was and can never be a father. And I have a son, and so I could never teach my son how to be a man. So what I did was I came up with a plan. And I want to relieve some pressure off of you. You're not the father. I don't care how many people on Father's Day call you and tell you happy Father. You are not the father. You were not designed to be a father. And just because your child's father may not be there doesn't mean that you have to try to step up and take that responsibility and that burden up on yourself. And so what I did was I made sure that as my son was growing up, that he had male figures in his life. He stayed in sports. So I kept him and made sure that the coaches stepped up and had mentors. And so God blessed me to be able to have that, but I had a plan for him. I knew that because I had a male and an African-American male, I knew we couldn't live in certain places. I knew that certain neighborhoods in my city that I couldn't move in. And so that's what I did. I had a plan. And so I want to encourage you. You're not the father. Make a plan for your children. The next thing is be like Hagar. You got to open up your eyes and see what's in front of you. Sometimes your provision is right in front of you and you just don't see it. And so you got to open your eyes. I don't believe. And then, too, you got to be okay with letting your child cry. I'm trying to relieve some pressure because if you read that particular story, what it says is It says when the lad cried. Now, Hagar is talking to God. She's talking to God about her child, and she's talking to him. But it's not until the lad cries that God responds. It says he heard the lad cry. And then after the lad was crying, and then she opened her eyes and she began to see. I don't believe that well just appeared out of nowhere. I believe that provision was already there for her, but she was so focused on her child that she couldn't see the provision. So I want to encourage you and tell you to open your eyes. And last but not least, I would say, know that your decisions affect your children. So be mindful of the decisions that affect your children. One of the things that I do for women is I'm a domestic violence professional. I'm a domestic violence advocate because my sister, I have a program called Love Cry. My sister was stabbed 26 times by her husband. Then he also drowned my 6-year-old niece, stabbed my nephew, my nephew lived. But she didn't know when she was making decisions that her decision was going to cost the life of her children. She didn't know that.
So sorry to hear that, Dr. Watson. Thank you. That's all the time we have for you today. But if people want to get in touch with you to find out more information, how can we connect with you?
They can go to drrenettawatson.com, or they can also send a text to 314-312-3448. That's 314-312-3448.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, folks. That is Dr. Renata Watson joining us. And we will be taking a quick break and come back on the other side of the break with more programming for you.
Thank you, Dr.
Injured in an accident? Ticketed for DUI or traffic violations? You need Riz Injury Law on your side. Attorney Riz Ali fights for you, specializing in auto accidents, medical malpractice, slip and falls, traffic tickets, DUI and DWI. Call 312-546-5109 now. That's 312-546-5109. One more time, 312-546-5109. Your story matters, and Riz Injury Law will fight to make sure you get justice. Visit RizInjuryLaw.com or stop by 35 East Wacker Drive, Suite 650 in Chicago, Illinois, 60601. That's Riz Injury Law. Justice, compensation, results. Call 312-546-5109.
Have no fear with regard to renewable energy. If you own property, either residential or commercial, in Northern Illinois, you most likely qualify for massive federal, state, and utility incentives. Grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. You can have a no-cost, no-obligation conversation with a ComEd green light expert that can help you figure out which incentives you qualify for. Again, call 630-785-0031 for a free, no-cost, no-obligation assessment. 630-785-0031.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Lightning Strike. If you want to join the conversation, the number to call in is 773-763-9278. Again, 773-763-9278 or WCPT. So, coming back to what's happening, Kristi Noem now makes a taxpayer-funded trip to Springfield for a 26-minute press conference, quote unquote. And in the press conference, she was basically talking about Governor Pritzker and the state sanctuary policies. She was sharply criticizing that, arguing that these policies undermine the rule of law and endanger Americans by shielding the undocumented immigrants accused or convicted of serious crimes from federal authorities, and on and on and on. The same talking points that the Trump administration has been pushing down our throats for so long now. The press conference was attended by several so-called angel families, relatives of individuals killed by undocumented immigrants. And notable attendees included the families of Danny McCann, Jimmy Walden, John Zander, Nick Platania, who shared personal stories of loss and criticized sanctuary policies. Now, Kristi Noem said that she is calling upon Governor Pritzker and other leaders in the state of Illinois to abandon these dangerous sanctuary policies. Quotes, "We need to return to law and order and put the safety of Americans first." Really? Is that what the Trump administration is doing? They're picking people off the street, people who are American citizens, and sending them to foreign countries. They're even sending them to Libya now, or they plan to send them to Libya. We don't even have an embassy in Libya anymore.
Yeah, this is crazy. And, it's nuts. And now they're even trying to go after the 14th Amendment. Now, there's a lot of amendments in the Constitution that have a little bit of a wiggle room where you can interpret that in a certain way. But the 14th Amendment is actually, there's no room for moving on that. They want to take anybody who's born in the country now, and if by chance they were born from somebody who was not a legal citizen or whatever, then they wanted to revoke their birthright citizenship. So, this is just getting really crazy. And with what, what you just said, people are just, they're taking the, the scenario where you want to get into people's faces. You want to get them. You want to hit a hot button. You want to use racism. You want to use all these talking points to do one against the other. That is not the way our country was founded. We shouldn't be in that position. We should be compromising, talking to people from both sides of the aisle, and making things happen, not just getting people upset in order to vote for what you think is, to make your own benefit.
Well, she also emphasized, Ken, that, and I'm quoting her here, as Secretary of Homeland Security, I'm going to uphold our federal immigration laws. Yes, lady. The first law that you have to uphold is that if an immigrant is here, legally, illegally, whatever, as long as they are here and they are asking for immigration, help, then you have to listen to them. You can't just pick them off the streets and send them to other countries. She said, I'm going to fight for the victims every single day. Yeah, what about the rest of the country who are being victimized by Trump and his trope of monkeys over there with the Doge and stuff now? So this is the funny thing, folks. If you like to join the conversation, feel free. Our lines are open today, 773-763-9278. Noem cited the release of Martin Chavez Lomeli now, a Mexican national convicted of second-degree murder in Illinois, as an example of such, what do you call it, man? Sanctuary policies failing public safety. So we got a guest on the line. Let's see who we have. And Steve from the Gold Coast. Steve, good morning. Welcome to the Lightning Strike.
Yes, I want to make a few points. And I share your concern because I think that many Americans on this issue of immigration are concerned about these individuals not being granted due process. And I think that it's a huge mistake on the part of this administration. I think it's a misunderstanding of where Americans are. And they believe in enforcement of our immigration laws. But at the same time, this notion of we're going to sweep up people who are here as students with visas, people who are permanent residents. Why? Because they articulated something that we don't like in terms of their free speech rights. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And then other people who are not being granted due process because they're just simply being rounded up and shipped somewhere such as El Salvador and so forth. But beyond that, I do think that we have a problem in terms of overreach, and we shouldn't fall for the bait, because most Americans, both Democratic and Republican, believe that if you came here illegally and you've gone through the process, you've had your hearings, then yes, ICE can, because unless we're waiting for you to just volunteer to leave, ICE can come in, arrest you, and deport you. But that is perfectly acceptable.
Steve, I agree with you on that. But I don't know if you heard just this morning that Stephen Miller has floated out this thing saying that the administration is considering suspending the right of habeas corpus.
Right, exactly. That's political overreach. This is where they're going to get themselves in trouble. I mean, if they would just stick to this notion of enforcing our immigration laws, which is, by the way, I mean, Barack Obama was criticized for this. Other administrations were criticized for this, but with all due respect, every nation in the world has immigration laws. All modern societies do. You can't just come into a society. And by the way, if you're going to have a society that can say we've addressed this issue and we're not going to have this conversation in 20 years, it means that you have to create disincentives. If you said to people, going into Neiman Marcus and grabbing anything that you want off the shelves incurred a $5 penalty, Neiman Marcus would be out of business tomorrow because a $5 penalty isn't a disincentive. What is a disincentive is actually spending a year or two in Cook County Jail or the Illinois Department of Corrections if you walk out with something worth X amount of money. And the same thing has got to be true.
That should apply to everyone, Steve. And the problem is that most of the people, when you are here, you're here, and you do have the right to due process. Okay. Now,
okay. Well, you're conflating a number of things. One, if you come here, let's say that, for instance, you cross the border illegally from Mexico, you are instantaneously returned. So the due process is that if they establish you're not an American citizen, they automatically move you back across the border. Now, asylum seeking, which is the big issue that's manifested itself in the last several years, especially in terms of the people who came here from Venezuela, are people who virtually everyone recognizes exploited the system. Asylum seekers were a tiny minority of people who applied to come here to be in this country since we passed that law in 1980. And then all of a sudden, in the last several years, millions of people.
Sorry to break in on this, Steve, but we got Reed Bible on the line, and I want Reed Bible to jump in on the conversation. Reed is an immigration attorney. He was also the special agent at the Department of Homeland Security. And Reed, what is your take on this?
Well, thanks, Mohammed. And first, I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. May you all enjoy your day with your families and be honored by them. The gentleman from the Gold Coast makes some good points, as well as you do, Mohammed, because we do have something of a conflict here. Technically, you are not legally in the United States until you've been admitted by an immigration inspector. However, the Constitution, the Fifth Amendment, says that any person, it doesn't matter whether you're a citizen, immigrant, or non-immigrant, if you're inside the country, you are entitled to what you said, Mohammed, due process. And this is where the Secretary of Homeland Security seems to be departing from the law herself. The puppy killer there, she seems to forget that people, no matter what their status, are entitled to some kind of hearing, some kind of production of evidence, because we don't know until they have a chance to have it aired out in a hearing whether they actually did come into the country illegally. Maybe they are trying to make an attempt to apply for asylum, but and maybe they have citizenship or something, but we won't know that until they actually get a hearing and they can produce evidence. And as a result of our failure to do that, we have actually deported lawfully admitted permanent residents and now force young U.S. citizens out of the country, deporting them essentially. So,
and that's the issue that I struggle with every day, folks. The family of Emma Schaefer, for example, whose murder was referenced by Noam, repeatedly, they were protesting her visit a couple of blocks away, and they were objecting to the politicization of their tragedy. And in fact, they sent out a press release through the governor's office saying, we do not agree with our daughter's name to be used in this context. We are at the top of the breakover, folks, so we'll take a quick break. Steve, thank you so much for calling in, and do listen in. Yeah, there is a lot to be discussed, my friend, and of course we'll have a couple of things that we agree to disagree on, but thank you again, and really appreciate your listening in. We'll take a quick break, folks. We'll be back on the other side of the break with Maria's segment of Breaking the Echo Chamber, if Maria is going to be on the line. She's actually headed to the airport to pick up her daughter, and if she is unable to join us, then we will continue the conversation. We'll be right back after this break.
Have no fear with regard to renewable energy. If you own property, either residential or commercial, in Northern Illinois, you most likely qualify for massive federal, state, and utility incentives. Grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. You can have a no-cost, no-obligation conversation with a ComEd green light expert that can help you figure out which incentives you qualify for. Again, call 630-785-0031 for a free, no-cost, no-obligation assessment. 630-785-0031.
Injured in an accident? Ticketed for DUI or traffic violations? You need Riz Injury Law on your side. Attorney Riz Ali fights for you, specializing in auto accidents, medical malpractice, slip and falls, traffic tickets, DUI and DWI. Call 312-546-5109 now. That's 312-546-5109. One more time, 312-546-5109. Your story matters, and Riz Injury Law will fight to make sure you get justice. Visit RizInjuryLaw.com or stop by 35 East Wacker Drive, Suite 650 in Chicago, Illinois, 60601. That's Riz Injury Law. Justice, compensation, results. Call 312-546-5109.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Lightning Strike. Ken wanted to make a comment on the conversation that we were having. Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried as far as, when you say about due process and a constitutional crisis. I mean, Donald Trump, in his first 100 days, he's had over 200 courts rule against him, and there was a good percentage of those rulings were from judges that he appointed. Okay. Now, the thing that I'm really concerned about, if somebody rules against him, theoretically, the judge says you have to go to jail or you have to do this, that, or the other thing. It's the executive branch who's in charge of the policing portion of that, and Trump can just tell his agents in the FBI or whatever, Homeland Security or whatever, don't prosecute that. Where does the line get drawn? And Reed, I'm really concerned about this, so maybe you have a comment to that.
I absolutely agree with you. This is the precipice that we're standing on. This is my fear of our losing our democracy, because the judges tell us what the law is. They interpret it. They tell us what the law is. They issue judicial orders, but they don't have an enforcement branch. That is the job of the executive branch, to enforce the law, whether it's a judicial order or whether it's a legislative statute or a regulation. And when the executive branch abdicates its responsibilities, when these are basically sacred obligations, the president and all his people in his executive branch take an oath to uphold the Constitution. And there are these separation of powers that must be observed. If the judicial branch tells you that something is illegal, it's unconstitutional, and gives you an order to comply with the law, you are supposed to comply with it. Typically, it's not the executive branch that's violating the law. So this is the crisis. When the executive branch itself is violating the law, who's going to enforce the law? That's why we must have a president with a high degree of integrity. Character and integrity does matter. If a president fails to observe the law, then we don't have a democracy anymore. And the ultimate resolution under the Constitution is that the people have the right to change their government. Now, that's the last-ditch effort. We shouldn't get anywhere near that in our democracy, but that's where we're heading to. We could have anarchy if we have a president that fails to enforce the law and respect the judges, not arrest judges or want them impeached every time one renders a decision that they don't like. And as Justice Roberts said, your recourse is to appeal that ruling that you don't like up to the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court gets the last say.
Okay, wonderful. Yep. Reed, thank you so much again for bringing your expertise. But folks, Read Bible has just come back from a trip to Ireland. Reed, you want to tell us what happened over there in Ireland? Why did you go, and what did they think about what's happening in America over here?
Well, I'll be happy to tell you all about all those things, Muhammad. Yes, I just returned from a visit to the Emerald Isles, and with my friends from Chicago, the Chicago delegation, and we are taking credit for there being a Chicago Pope now, and I will tell you why. There's a legendary castle about 120 miles to the southwest of Dublin called Blarney Castle. And there's a magical stone there called the Blarney Stone, and you may have heard about kissing the Blarney Stone. Well,
did hear about it, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, us Chicagoans, we climbed all the way up to the top of that castle. Unfortunately, the Blarney Stone is at the top of the castle, not at the bottom, and it was quite an effort to get up there. But we did actually climb up there, all such a genarians that we are, and get to the top of the castle. And then they make you lie on your back, and they slide you up underneath the stone where your head is actually kind of exposed to the outside of the wall. So this is not for the weak of heart. And therefore, people kiss that stone real fast. Well, I'll tell you, we got up there. We kissed that stone, and less than 2 hours after all of the Chicagoans kissed that stone, we had a Chicago Pope. That was last Thursday.
Now, let me ask you a quick question. Is it true that even though he's from the South Side, that secretly he's a Cubs fan?
Yeah, no, he's a Sox fan.
I believe he's a White Sox fan.
He's a Sox fan.
No, I know. I mean, everyone's saying that because it's from the South Side, but I heard through the grapevine he's actually a Cubs fan, in disguise.
Well, I thought there's got to be some causal connection between my kiss and having a Chicago Pope. I think my reasoning is just as valid as
Take credit for that. But hey, it's not just the Chicago Pope. I mean, his family goes back to Louisiana, man. So all four of his maternal and great-grandparents were free people of color in Louisiana. So we don't just have an American Pope, a Chicago Pope, but we also have the first black Pope also from Chicago, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So based on the 19th century census records now, his family is in a melting pot of French, Spanish, African, and Native American cultures in Louisiana. That's where he comes from. And, the Creole culture, to put it mildly. We got Ron from Michigan calling in about the Pope. Ron, good morning.
Good morning, Mohammed. I told my son, I said, they're going to elect an African Pope. And they did, okay? And, it is the genius of the Catholic Church. They put in a man who was what I would call a worker priest who went to the indigenous people of Peru and made the love they have for him now is immense. And he's going to spread this love. But also with this love, I'm feeling a great sense of hope, okay, and power. Because this man was put there to fight Trump, to fight fascism around the world that is spreading. And in my opinion, this is the perfect person right now that we need. And we must rally around behind, whether you're a Catholic or Christian or whatever. We just like our friends in Michigan who turned their back on the Democratic Party and put Republicans in power. And now what they're paying in Gaza, in the Middle East, I hope they're happy. Well, I hope they're happy. I hope they come home and see the folly of their ways, because we have to unite.
There's a lot of discussion going on in the Muslim community about what happened and why we need to take a lesson from this. But let's keep our focus on the Pope now. His maternal grandparents were Joseph and Louise Martinez, who lived in New Orleans, 7th Ward, I believe. This is a historically Creole area. And I'm telling you, what's his name? Who's our president now, Ken?
Trump or something like that?
I don't know. I keep forgetting because...
Just say traitor.
This guy has no idea about what he's doing. And anyway, so he must be having nightmares now that he wanted an American president. He was projecting himself as to be the American Pope. And now this comes, Pope Leo now. And he is everything that Trump is not. And he's opposed to every one of Trump's policies. So this is going to be a fascinating thing to watch as we go forward as to how America reacts to the new Pope. Reed.
So, that's a great point, Mohammed. It's like weird because, the Christian right and, who basically all their values are, help your fellow man and have Jesus principles and everything else. What this Republican Party does is completely 180 degrees from that, which doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a dichotomy there that just doesn't fit. And I think you're right. This Pope is probably going to make a big difference. Oh, real quick, Reed. Mohammed asked you this one question about the people you talk to in Ireland, and before we get off our show, have you spoken to them, and what are their thoughts on what's going on there from their perspective?
We did get a little touch of that, and quite frankly, it's not good. The people are at least in Ireland and Europe, because I got news from off the continent too. They're very disappointed in the United States that we had selected Donald Trump as our president, and they are not happy with Trump's policies whatsoever. They consider him to be despotic and not well educated in history or in economics, and that it's hurting them and it's hurting our reputation around the world. But I think also a lot of them understand that half of America did not vote for him either. So they don't really hold us so much accountable as they do criticize Trump. They realize we're kind of a split nation right now, and they're waiting with bated breath as to what we're going to do with next year's elections, and to try to put a check on this craziness that we're seeing as far as economic and racial and immigration policies here.
Well, thank you, Reed. And like I said in the beginning, the president claimed in a press conference that India and Pakistan have been at war for centuries. The countries were founded in 1947, man. So that's the extent of the knowledge of our president. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side of the break with Earl. And Earl, please hold on. We'll take your call as soon as we come back on the other side of the break.
Have no fear with regard to renewable energy. If you own property, either residential or commercial, in Northern Illinois, you most likely qualify for massive federal, state, and utility incentives. Grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. You can have a no-cost, no-obligation conversation with a ComEd green light expert that can help you figure out which incentives you qualify for. Again, call 630-785-0031 for a free, no-cost, no-obligation assessment. 630-785-0031.
Injured in an accident? Ticketed for DUI or traffic violations? You need Riz Injury Law on your side. Attorney Riz Ali fights for you, specializing in auto accidents, medical malpractice, slip and falls, traffic tickets, DUI and DWI. Call 312-546-5109 now. That's 312-546-5109. One more time, 312-546-5109. Your story matters, and Riz Injury Law will fight to make sure you get justice. Visit RizInjuryLaw.com or stop by 35 East Wacker Drive, Suite 650 in Chicago, Illinois, 60601. That's Riz Injury Law. Justice, compensation, results. Call 312-546-5109.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Lightning Strike. And we come every Sunday morning from 9 to 10 on WCPT. You can also listen to us live on heartlandsignal.com worldwide. And our science and technology correspondent, Carl Moose, is on the line with his take on what is happening in the scientific world. And then we'll go to the phone lines and take Earl. Earl, please hold on. Carl, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. It's a beautiful day. So what I want to talk about today is I was with my kids last night, and we were watching one of our favorite movies, Contact, with Jodie Foster and Matt McConaughey. And it's a movie about SETI, and she's a scientist looking for intelligent life out in the universe. And I thought I would talk about that today. You know, it's amazing when we start to think about the vastness of the universe, right? And, you know, just our galaxy alone, they estimate there's over 100 billion stars, many of which have planets that are orbiting them, much like our star. And, you know, with this new project, the mission to Kepler, they've identified thousands of what they call exoplanets. These are planets that have diverse range of size and composition, some of which are in what's called the Goldilocks or the habitable zone, which means there could be life there. So, you know, that's a very interesting thing, just the vastness of our universe. And then, you know, you start thinking about what the conditions are for life. You know, what does it take to actually have life? And they say there's over 200 variables that come into the possibility of life on other planets that are, you know, outside of our solar system. And certainly water is one that's an essential thing. But, you know, here on Earth, there are organisms that, you know, that survive in very hostile environments right here on Earth. Like, for example, deep in the ocean where there's no oxygen, no light, and there's basically methane. So there are other possibilities and other conditions out there, you know, for extremities beyond just an environment that has oxygen and water. And then there's something called the Drake equation. And this is basically talks about, you know, what if there is the existence of extraterrestrial life? You know, this was proposed by Frank Drake back in 1961, and it takes into different factors of the rate of a star formation, the fraction of the stars that actually have planets, and the likelihood of life actually developing there. And there's a lack of data with regard to what else is out there in the universe, but this principle talks about the probability of extraterrestrial, you know, civilizations. And then, of course, the movie that I'm talking about, Contact, talks about, you know, the probability of us contacting them and whether or not that's even a possibility. And, you know, SETI, the, you know, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, is an agency that a lot of us are familiar with. And there's a new one called Breakthrough Listening Initiative, which is also now monitoring not only radio waves, but what's called fast radio bursts, FRBs. And these are radio waves that are being picked up, and we just don't know what the source of them are. So it could be cosmic in terms of just the natural operation of the universe creating these waves, or it could be intelligent life trying to, you know, reach out and contact us. So, you know, there's a lot of different things. And then another paradox, the Fermi paradox, right? And Fermi paradox says, if there is life out there, where is it, right? Why haven't we been contacted or been able to contact them? So there's a lot of just interesting things with regard to, you know, this idea. And then, of course, the last one I want to talk about is interstellar travel. Do you know the closest star to us is 4 light years away? Now, what does that mean? That means if you're traveling at the speed of light, it would take you 4 years to get there, which we don't have the ability to do that at this time. Our technology just doesn't give us that ability to do that. So it would take thousands of years for us to reach the nearest star, which is, you know, a real challenge. You know, how do you put people in space in a closed environment, you know, to travel for thousands of years? So just a lot of interesting stuff that goes into when you start thinking about this.
Well, Carl,
Carl, let me ask you a quick question. I heard in the news recently that on some of those exoplanets that you're talking about, when they transverse the star, the light that they refract coming back, depending on the atmosphere of that planet, will take different wavelengths. So they're actually seeing some exoplanets that they show signs of methane, which is basically something that only exists if you have some kind of life to produce that. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, so the new microscopes that they or the new telescopes that they have out there are so sophisticated that they can actually do exactly what you just said. They can more accurately read the composition of the atmosphere. And to your point, they're finding planets out there that have methane. And the only way that we know of producing methane is there has to be organic activity. There has to be life. So, that's a very interesting proposition that they're floating right now.
Well, Carl, the only thing that I can say is if they come looking for intelligent life on Earth, they don't go to our nation's capital and want to,
Good point. Yeah, there's a lot of gas out there. There's a lot of gas in Washington. We just
methane by the bucketful. And Earl, let's welcome Earl into the conversation. Earl, good morning. Thank you for holding on, my friend.
All right, thank you, and happy Mother's Day to everyone out there who are mothers.
Hey guys, I want to jump in with one thing over here.
Now, what I wanted to say.
Hang on 1 second, Earl.
I'm talking about Trump.
Earl, I'm sorry to be talking over you, but hold on 1 second,
man. We're talking about science right now. I guess I'll try to stick to the subject.
We'll just let Earl talk. Okay, go ahead, Earl.
There are various environments here on the planet that are very toxic to life as we know it, but there are life forms that are living in these very toxic environments, like at the base of some of our volcanoes that spew these very toxic gases and acids. We have life forms that can live within these areas that would be very toxic and would kill human beings and other life forms. So the wide variety of space that people could, let's say not people, but life could exist in the solar system is beyond what we see every day and how we live every day. Like at the bottom of the ocean, he was indicating that there's no oxygen down there, there's no light down there. But if you don't have any light, you don't have photosynthesis, and you're not getting food from the sun directly. So, yes, I do agree this is very important, but I just hope that we have enough wherewithal that...
Earl, we got 30 seconds before we conclude our conversation on this one. You had a comment on President Trump, so get it off your chest, my friend.
Great, we go on with the atmosphere and some of the things we're doing to the ocean.
Okay,
and
I don't think Earl is hearing
our ground and poisoning our ground, poisoning our water.
Please continue that call from Earl so we can have a conversation. He just seems to be going on about his own thoughts on that. Folks, this is your show. Feel free to call in, but please keep to the conversation that you wanted to talk about. So the number to call in is 773-763-9278. We got Carl Moose, we got Read Bible, we got Ken DeLuke, and me, Mohammed Fahim, on the show today. And we want to take one quick break for one ad about the attorney that is supporting our show, and we'll be right back to conclude the program.
Injured in an accident? Ticketed for DUI or traffic violations? You need Riz Injury Law on your side. Attorney Riz Ali fights for you, specializing in auto accidents, medical malpractice, slip and falls, traffic tickets, DUI and DWI. Call 312-546-5109 now. That's 312-546-5109. One more time, 312-546-5109. Your story matters, and Riz Injury Law will fight to make sure you get justice. Visit RizInjuryLaw.com or stop by 35 East Wacker Drive, Suite 650 in Chicago, Illinois, 60601. That's Riz Injury Law. Justice, compensation, results. Call 312-546-5109.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Fahim.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Lightning Strike. We got about 5 minutes to conclude the show today, and I really wanted to bring up something very important that is going to be very important for us as a state, and that is our Senator Dick Durbin has decided not to run, and 3 people have already thrown their hats into the ring over here, and that is going to be Raja Krishnamurthy, the 8th District Congressman, and also Robin Kelly and the Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton. Please keep on listening to the show because we will be digging deep into each one of these people's backgrounds. I keep hearing that 4th District Congresswoman Lauren Underwood might also be considering a run for the Senate. And this is a very, very important position for us as a state, folks. So we need to make sure that we find out who these people are. Raja Krishnamurthy, 8th District, has been hoarding money for a long time because he thought that he is going to be a shoe-in for this. He's got $19 million in his war chest. And what has he done as a congressman? That is up for debate. And we will be digging deep into his background.
Wait, Mohammed.
Yes, Ken.
He's named 2 libraries. That's important.
No. Come on, Ken. He's done a lot more than that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. He named 2 post offices. My bad. He named 2 post offices.
And he was planning on renaming. He was planning on renaming a 3rd one also after a veteran. So, we will be digging deep into Mr. Krishnamurthy's background and his associations with some very unsavory people worldwide that have given him this $19 million. And let me tell you something, folks. Illinois is not for sale, okay? And he's going against Juliana Stratton with the governor's blessing on her back now. It's going to be a tough fight. But you have to pay attention to this. And just coming back to the phone lines, Steve, you wanted to say something about aliens, my friend, so we'll give you the last word on the show today. Oh, Steve dropped off. Okay, great, wonderful. Steve, thank you so much for listening. But we just have 1 hour, so we try to cover a lot of stuff in this. Folks, do go back to our website, which is TLS for the Lightning Strike, TLSchicago.com. You will find out information about the show. You can also listen to all our previous shows through the website. And also today's show we will be posting on the website. And you can also support our show. So there is a donate button over there. If you would please throw in a couple of bucks our way, we can continue this programming over here. Reed, so you think when the aliens come to visit America and they want to talk to our leader, do you think we got a chance of impressing them?
Well, if you can have a Chicago Pope, I think we can impress them. So,
Okay, but hey, if they insist on talking to our leader, I think we can just show them that hey, our leader is Governor Pritzker. Okay.
Yeah, Pritzker's all right as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, he might be a presidential candidate coming here too soon, guys.
Well, I hope so, because at least, I mean, he talks intelligently, okay? And he is a real billionaire. You know that, right? Not like Trump, who pretends to be a billionaire. And most of his money now is coming from that meme coin that is being floating around, and a lot of people are buying the cryptocurrency and funneling money into Trump and his cohorts' pockets. And there should be an investigation on all of that, my friend.
Oh, and by the way, me being a former stockbroker and commodity broker, you can go short on the market and buy way out of the money puts. It's not going to cost you a lot of money, and that could really work out for you in the long run.
Wonderful. On that note, folks, thank you so much for listening. And on behalf of Ken DeLuke, Sheila White, Maria Muzaffar, Read Bible, this is Muhammad Fahim signing off for the Lightning Strike this Sunday morning, May 11th. Happy Mother's Day to all our listeners.